Yes, thank you very much, Sean. And once again, a very big welcome to all of our attendees this morning. We want to say thank you for the awesome support that we've had from you over the past few years for these Tuesday morning Toolbox Talks. And we also want to say a very big thank you to IOPSA, FEM, as well as SIOSH, and now for this year from the PRB for accrediting these Toolbox Talks. So we want to say just to everyone out there that this morning's Toolbox Talk is based on high pressure cleaning, so high pressure sprayers. You might not be using this. Perhaps you are the safety professional and you are looking after some contract plumbers. Perhaps you are a plumber, but you might not be doing or using this form of equipment, but it is still very good information for us to understand the dangers of using these types of things, and in particular, many of us using them at home. So please, this is with the use of this machine, we are going to apply it in a working environment, but it can be applied for home use as well. And the danger at home is obviously our guard is let down. We're not using the proper safety equipment while we are working at home, and so we are more susceptible to these dangers and exposures when working in an environment that we are a lot more relaxed. So this morning's Toolbox Talk is on high pressure cleaning machines, and oftentimes as plumbers you are using this out there to clean out whatever it is that you are needing to clean out, or perhaps spray out or get some debris out of some of the piping, perhaps even cleaning some of the units that you're using on site. The high pressure side of this, and it can get bigger and bigger on the machine you have. And we've actually seen some trucks driving down the road with huge tankers on them, massive machines for high pressure spraying. There we're talking about industrial size machines, but we are going to come down to a small scale and just talk about a very small high pressure machine. And then we see the dangers of something small. We should then realize, talking about a small machine, the bigger you go, the higher pressure machine you have, the more dangerous it is. We don't often realize that these machines can be dangerous purely because we've used them before, maybe for such a long time, and we've never had an injury. Now, chatting to a few of the plumbers at the plumbing evening, we realized that, and this is obviously common sense, the safety really is common sense, and a lot of you mentioned that. You know, how can you injure yourself with a high pressure machine? You should know how to use it. Now, that was a very good comment from one of the plumbers out there, and we fully agree with you. But certain people, while working on site with these machines, tend to play around or tend to misuse this machine. Maybe it is because they do not understand the danger that is involved in it. So horseplay, obviously, that type of action could be dismissal off of site, especially when using something dangerous that could seriously injure the other person. So let us take a look at the information at hand, and we're going to look at some doctor's reports. We're also going to look for the information from the Center of Disease Control on high pressure machines, and let us see the conclusion that we come to. Is it dangerous? Are high pressure machines really that dangerous? And can they inflict harm or cause injury? Even if they do cause harm, the question is it not just a small injury? So let us answer these questions that you gave us about high pressure machines. I know this was a few months ago, so we're sorry that it takes so much time in order to develop the content to get back to you, but this is why we are doing this. We are always asking for feedback from you so that we can get these answers to you. Well, the fact about high pressure water and how you can protect yourself is going to be done in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Let us take an example of a very small machine. Now we're talking about one that you use to clean your car, whether it's those little Ryobis, little Karcher machines that you're using. And one of the smallest ones that I found at the hardware was approximately around 1,600 PSI. That was the machines that are generally used to wash cars at home. And these are being bought and used on sites just to clean off materials, to clear off debris out of pipe work, or even just general cleaning of the area. So this is the 1600 psi, or pounds per square inch machine. So what we did was we went and looked at what is the psi equal to when it talks to bars of pressure. Now, when you go and fill up your tires, you know how many bars of pressure you put on there. Now, psi is equal to 0.068 bars of pressure. Quite minimal, wouldn't you agree? But let us take the 1600 psi machine and convert that into bars of pressure. Now we are talking 110 bar of pressure. So this just puts it into perspective for us. That amount of pressure forcing out water can cause injury. Now, what type of injury are we talking about? Life-threatening injury? Well, let's take a look at a case study to start, and then we will find out what can go wrong if these machines are not used properly. Now, this case study comes from Dr. Howard Mell, who is a spokesperson for the American College of Emergency Physicians. And they said the extreme danger with high pressure washers is that even with what seems a very minimal skin break, the fluid that is being pressed in can get deep into the tissue and spread out. Now, this is any fluid, including water, and that is because it creates subcutaneous air bubbles. And what this does is it traps inside of the body any blood or anything like that that was also trapped inside here now starts to die off, and it actually infects and starts creating almost like a diseased area around that injury. Now, he mentions that he recalled a patient who was hit in the calf, so just behind the leg, producing a laceration, so a small cut that was less than 5 centimeters across. So not a relatively massive injury. At first, you wouldn't even say it was a very serious injury. Probably a little bit of bruising, a very small cut, not seeming to be very, very dangerous. But internally, so inside this wound, there was an infection in the muscle. And notice what it took in order to cure this person because of this injury. Well, it was a long operation and months of physical therapy to heal them. Now, we might say, well, maybe he wasn't gymming enough or eating the right food. Well, the fact is there that by using this machine, it caused a potential issue. And yes, it seemed small. So we go back to our question, even if we did get injured, isn't the injury relatively small? Yes, we agree, it does look small. But the consequences of that injury could be a long operation and months of physical therapy. So we leave it up to you. That is one case study out of the thousands that we've researched over the past few months. In fact, there were some graphic pictures of things that you can see about skin flapping. Basically, this is the tearing of skin off of a person's body due to the high pressure. And then we're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 PSI machines that are being used. And these are seriously dangerous machines. But even starting with the smallest one, we can see how dangerous this can become. So what can really go wrong when using one of these machines? Well, the strong spray from these pressure machines can cause serious wounds that might first appear minor. Now, this information is taken from the CDC. This is the Center of Disease Control. And they say that one of the biggest dangers is that wounds that appear minor can cause a person to delay treatment, increasing risk for infection, disability, or even amputation. Now, this is not based on the suck of a thumb or the pulling out of information from a hat. This is due to people being injured, not taking it seriously, and later on suffering consequences of a more serious wound. So we will find out how to prevent the exposure and how to look after a wound from this type of machine, but do not delay in getting treatment. That is really the consensus of all of the research that we have done. This fast, strong spray can throw objects, it can strike and injure others who are also close by. So very carefully while working with these machines, just be on the lookout for anybody else who might be working in the vicinity around you. You might not spray it directly at them, but whatever you are spraying could also dislodge and fly off and perhaps hurt or injure the other person. Now, something else that could happen is when working with an electric machine, because it is plugged into an electrical socket, the danger is there also of electric shock. So please ensure you follow the safety instructions and how to prevent the exposure. When we talk about that, we will also mention the cabling and how to look after these machines properly. As with any portable electrical tool, this will become part of your register and checklist item that must be inspected before you use it. If you are using a gasoline or a petrol or a diesel powered one, please ensure that it is not used inside a closed room, because carbon monoxide poisoning can happen. It might seem like a small machine, it might feel like a small injury, but the repercussions further on can become more severe. So how should you prevent exposure to these types of dangers? Well, first of all, take it seriously. Don't feel that just because it is a small machine that has relatively small injuries attached to it, that it is low in importance. Anything to do with health and safety should remain a high priority for us on site. So do your risk assessment, understand what are the dangers of the thing that you are working with, then use it properly. And here's a few points in order to use this machine properly. Never point a pressure washer at yourself or anyone else. Never use a petrol powered washer in an enclosed space. Remember that carbon monoxide poisoning can occur. Always plug a properly grounded pressure washer into a properly grounded socket. So obviously this thing needs to be inspected properly to ensure, as the next point says, that the extension cord or even the cord being used is in good condition. And then if you have to use an extension cord, ensure that it is connected and moved away from any water that might be present. You do not want these cords or the sockets or even the plugs laying in the water that you are exposing to the area around you. A very good idea is to wear rubber-soled shoes that provide insulation when using a pressure washer. Now, when you are on site, it is a mandatory requirement to wear rubber-soled safety boots with a steel tip. If you are not wearing them on site, then you are not wearing the correct PPE. If it is not required on your site, well, perhaps you should ask yourself why it is not required on site. Since you are using machines that could potentially cause injury, PPE should be mandatory. It is not the first barrier of defense. It is generally the last port of call when we have PPE, but it is still a mandatory item. They never remove the grounding prong. So we often see this where we take off one of those prongs just because the plug socket that we are using is in a bad condition and it's not fitting in, or we cut it and put another plug on it. If that is the case, please ensure it is inspected by a qualified electrician to ensure that that is still a properly grounded cord. So we just want to give you those few prevention tips. There is a lot more information. In fact, if you do go onto the web, you will find quite a bit of information there, but we have sifted through all of it in order to bring you the most important stuff. But now we want to spend a little bit of time on what if you do get injured by a pressure washer. So we've discussed that it is dangerous. We also understand that we need to use it properly. But when we do get injured, and I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, because the possibility that it happens all the time. And we wish it didn't happen, but unfortunately, this type of exposure does occur very regularly. Just take care of that wound. Before treating it, ensure you wash your hands with soap and clean water to not cause any bacteria or any infection to get into the wound. Then remove any object that is in the way of caring for the wound. Now, here we just want to stop and remind those of you who have been trained in first aid, there are certain objects that you are allowed to remove from a wound and certain objects that you are not allowed to remove from a wound. So if you are the person being injured, the best thing to do is call the first aider. They have been trained and are qualified to look at the type of wound and to provide first aid care in order to get you from where you are to the ambulance or to the hospital in a good enough condition so that the hospitals and the professionals can take over. Then put pressure on the wound with a clean cloth to stop the bleeding. After the bleeding has stopped, use some clean running water to cover over the wound and to clean the wound once again, and then gently clean around the wound with soap and clean water. Now, this is obviously if it is not a deep cut, if it is just a minor laceration, as we mentioned, and then pat it dry using an adhesive bandage and then a dry cloth to cover the wound. If it is an open wound, then or an unclean wound, leave that open for the doctors to look after. But what is the first aid measure that we are always encouraging people to follow? Seek medical attention. If you are not sure if it is going to be a dangerous type of wound or if there's something internal, when in doubt, just go to the doctor. So persons who have high pressure spray wounds are urged to get medical attention as soon as possible. They might have to do some x-rays to check inside. They might even have to give you a tetanus shot or antibiotics or make a referral to a specialist. We hope it doesn't get to that severity, but that severity is a possibility, which means the risk of working with high pressure machines is high. We need to put in mitigating factors or making it safer to bring it down to a low or medium risk, depending on the type of work you are doing. So never forget to do your risk assessment, use the machine properly, ensure you have the right equipment when using the machine, be aware of the danger and take it seriously. And if you are injured, seek medical attention. So that's all the time that we have this morning, and we would like to say thank you very much for joining us for this Toolbox talk this morning. We do want to remind all of the IOPSA members for the courses that are coming up for this year. Now, some of you have already attended the courses down in the Western Cape, and we want to say thank you very much for doing that. Some of you are currently in the course at the moment, but we just want to give you a bit of a heads up for March. Obviously, we're going to be out in Gauteng. Then in April, we are going to be down in KZN. So any of you KZN plumbers out there who are IOPSA members, please get in touch with us now for those dates in April. We are trying to set up a date that suits everybody. And then we are back in Gauteng again in May for our second round of training here. And then in June, we are down in the Southern Cape. So all of you, George, Neisner guys, plumbers out that side, please get in touch with us as well. Perhaps even Jacques Brewer down there from the IOPSA Southern Cape area. And please let him know what dates would suit you for the Southern Cape training. Remember, as an IOPSA member, you can send 2 employees free of charge for this course. If you have more employees, IOPSA has allowed us to give you a discounted rate on the additional training. So for any information, just mail us at safety@iopsa.org, chris@ohss.co.za, and then we have that additional info@ohss.co.za as well. If you need any help, email any one of those accounts or get in touch with us via phone call or WhatsApp on the following 2 numbers. And then don't forget, these are eligible for CPD points. So we want to say thank you very much to SIOSH as well as PRB for sponsoring. Now, next week, we are looking at simple safety, and look out for that handout that is going to give you just a very basic guideline to what you need to do and how you need to work with safety simply, especially with a very small business. You know, many of us do not have big, large businesses, and we need something that is just simple for ourselves working on the ground. And for any of the safety professionals out there, if you have more information for us, please give it to us. We really appreciate all the feedback that we have received. So thank you very much again. That's all from my side, and I'm going to hand it over back to you, Sean.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Chris. Chris, you basically said it all, so thanks so much, guys, for joining us. I am going to go ahead and end the session off now. Please remember to join us next week, guys, and then also be on the lookout. If you do enjoy these sessions, IOPSA is bringing out a brand new series, Business 101. That series starts on the 24th of February. It'll be every Monday. Other than that, guys, thanks so much again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye, guys.